In this video, I'll be talking about dividing fractions. And the first thing I want to say is dividing fractions is just as easy as multiplying them. So let's start with an example. Let's say we have 3/5 divided by 4/7. What we're going to do now is try to get the numerator and denominator a whole number by multiplying, by identity multiplying the second fraction. So we take a look at the second fraction and we have 4 and a 7. So we're going to multiply this fraction by a 4 and then multiply it by a 7, by 1 basically. So divided by 4 and multiplied by 4 cancel out, and division by 4 and division by 7 and multiplication by 7 cancel out as well. So now we're left with 3/5 multiplied by 7/4. Doing this is the same thing as multiplying the first fraction by the reciprocal. So this would be the reciprocal of 4/7. Now that we have it in this form, we can just multiply the numerators and denominators together. So 7 times 3 is 21, and 5 times 4 is 20. So this would be our answer. So just for clarity, basically all we're doing is multiplying by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So we had 4/7, then we turned this fraction, we flip this over and then multiply. So 3/5, then multiply, we flip the 7 on top and put the 4 on the bottom. It's called the reciprocal. And then we multiply to get 21 and 20ths. In schools, you may have been taught to cross multiply, and this is where it comes from. When you cross multiply, you're basically turning the second fraction into a reciprocal. So let's look at how that works. 3/5 divided by 4/7 equals, so when we cross multiply, we get 3/7. 3 times 7 and 5 times 4. As you can see, we get the same number. That's because we're basically doing the same thing. When we cross multiply, we're basically multiplying by the reciprocal. We're just skipping this step of changing the second fraction into the reciprocal and going straight to our multiplication problem. You can also think of this division problem in another way, in terms of a larger fraction. Let's say we have 3/5, and instead of writing it like this, we write it as a larger fraction, 4/7. Now what we want to do is get rid of the denominator, and the way we do that is we multiply by the reciprocal. So 4/7 will be, the reciprocal of 4/7 would be 7/4, and whatever we do to the top, to the bottom, we have to do to the top. And when these two multiply, they cancel each other out, basically making 1. And we can just forget about the 1. So in the end, we have just a simple fraction of 3/5 multiplied by 7/4. And when we multiply these together, we get 21 20ths. Again, here we're multiplying by the reciprocal. Again, when you're dividing fractions, you basically flip the second fraction over and basically multiply it by the reciprocal. So let's work some examples. Say we have 2 6 divided by 1/4. The first thing we do is we make it into a larger fraction. You don't have to do this, but you can. We make it into a larger fraction. Now we have 2 6 divided by 1/4. So we trying to get rid of the denominator. We multiply the denominator by the reciprocal. We do the same to the top. These become 1. And now we're just left with 2 6 multiplied by 4 ones. Now 2 times 4 is 8, and 6 times 1 is 6. And this can be reduced to 4/3. And 3 goes into 4 one time, so we have 1. And then we'll have 1 left over, so 1 and 1/3 would be the final answer. Now let's solve one with cross multiplication. So we have 2 divided by 1/4. First thing we do is turn this 2 into a fraction. So 2 is the same thing as 2 over 1. And then we divide by 1/4. So by cross multiplying, we're multiplying by the reciprocal. So 2 times 4 is 8, and 1 times 1 is 1. So the answer is 8. Let's do another problem. Say we have 2 7ths divided by 1/3. So when we divide, we want to multiply by the reciprocal. So we flip this over, and that will give us the reciprocal. So 2 7ths multiplied by 3 ones equals 2 times 3 is 6, and 7 times 1 is 7. So that would be our answer. So that is all you do with division problems that involve fractions. You take the second fraction, you flip it over, and you multiply.